It's the fellows from Cracked CCG. My name is Cary.
Enrique.
Mike.
And we're here to discuss the new ban list. Top Constructed, Top Eternal, Top, your top limited cards. We're going to be covering what our picks are, what we think might be bombs, things that might be under the radar, things that are placed about where they're at. So the first thing we'll start covering is the ban list. We're going to start with the modern ban list, which is going to cover Gataxian Probe. The reasoning that they gave Gataxian Probe the banning is that they said that it led to too many degenerate play patterns for turn 3 kills, which is kind of against what Modern is looking to do as far as the turn 4 kill.
Yes.
The other thing that they said that it gives is unfair advantage for decks to be in combo or to have semi-combo aggressive decks, as far as like heavy, looking at your Death Shadow, Infect, things that are looking to go all in on certain turns. And they said they gave too much of an unfair advantage to where when you're a control player or if you're having to play the control role, you now lose the ability to bluff or to hold up or to use your kill spells if you are continuing them in your hand.
Yeah, and then it opens up the field for is my Blighted Agent safe to attack this turn?
Right.
Let me take a look at his hand, let me draw an extra card and see how I feel about attacking. And then I think that was the biggest factor in deciding where the Gataxian Probe got banned.
Right. It essentially pretty much removed control heavily from the format where we used to see American control and things like that. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Right.
For those decks that are really looking for that critical mass type of an attack, where you're looking to hit with Death Shadows and you're needing to use your battle rage at the right time, you're needing to use things of that nature,
Become immense.
You're really needing to really know how to fire those off and what time with the Gataxian Probe. And it's really lending to those things. Also, too, what it was lending to is really breaking what they want as far as a turn 4 format. What they want in Modern is they want everybody to be able to at least start to set up or to play your game plan that your deck is trying to initiate up till turn 4.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say that if you show up to the tournament, every match you're looking at least being able to survive to turn 4 to figure out, maybe sometimes it can allow you to pull yourself out of mulligans, it can allow you to write your mana, it can allow you to set up your board or to set up a position to which you can start controlling the game. And when you're killing on turn 2.5, turn 3, which Gataxian Probe allowed, you're not allowing for those things. They don't give you a force of will to survive those early turns. You're relying on things like Thoughtseize, Remand, Path to Exile, things that sometimes aren't going to get you out of that early turn to get to the later turns.
Yeah, it also sets up in Delver is such a key piece because you Gataxian Probe then you draw your card, you look at your hand, before you make any moves, you already know this is the line I need to take because this is what I have in hand and this is what he has in hand. So right off the bat you get an unfair advantage of drawing that extra fetch land to play it, to crack it, to know that he can't stop your Delver flip because he doesn't have a removal.
Right.
Or hold up the counter spell because you know he has a removal and not play your Delver. In key strategies like that, the difference between 3 tokens and death is very slim. That's where it just makes a huge difference in that deck too.
I have a 2-part question for both of you guys. Now, with banning Gataxian Probe, do you think that we're going to see in the long run more games, especially in big tournaments, going longer into time? And how is that going to affect the competitive format? And number 2, Gataxian Probe is so bad, we know how they hate degenerate decks. How do you feel about them allowing at least one of the pieces in liner control to stick around? Do you think they should have hit one of those pieces?
I think that liner control is definitely something they're probably, as far as the second part and as far as hitting degenerate pieces, I think they're showing that they're trying to constrain the game both at the long end by removing decks like eggs. And I think that they're showing that they're looking to remove decks that are too quick, such as Summer Bloom, now Gataxian Probe, and I think that they're also showing that there are certain decks that, and you had that deck that was kind of chopping the format in the middle and pushing everybody in a different direction with Splinter Twin. So I think right now what they're trying to do is they're trying to push everyone more towards the center sweet spot, where I think that for the first part, I think that time is not going to be a problem. I think that Modern, outside of things like Lantern, what's left over of the eggs deck, sometimes with your ad nauseum decks. I don't think you're going to be seeing too much of a long game. I think that there's a lot of things that bring inevitability. Just Guide Control got Cary. Well, Just Guide Control is always one of the more of the bad guys as far as like going into time. But now with things like Nahiri, they have a reasonable clock. They have a realistic endpoint to their matches. Instead of sitting there and waiting till they get this gross amount of land and trying to attack with Celestial Colonnade and still leaving up enough mana to respond to your turn. So they're not waiting to get to those board points anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that what it shows too with Gitaxian Pro is that they're willing to, I think with Modern, I think that they're willing to move towards moving the game. They're willing to move the game to where they want to by taking little points. So Gitaxian Pro wasn't this massive hit. It was just this little thing where they kind of shave the edge and trying to shave the edge instead of big splashy things like
blood.
Well, like when they did Splinter Twin, when they did Birthing Pod, those really were just the death.
I'm gonna kill the deck.
Right. I mean that's the death of the deck.
And that's what they try to do with it. Amulet Bloom, the same thing.
They did it with the Amulet Bloom. There's some guys that just are holding on. You know, bless them. They're trying to go.
You still see the sneaky flare coming up.
Yeah, you still see them, and you still see them using like they're just packing 4 Azuzas, and they're just hoping to like land her and just jam it down. But I think that Gitaxian Pro, it's for the reasons that they gave. It sounds good. It sounds like they're like a sound move in the format.
Right.
I also think that just shows that anything that's got Phyrexian mana in it. It's probably already on the watch board.
Yeah, it's being watched. There's certain mechanics.
The watch list, it doesn't matter how good or how bad, if it has Phyrexian mana on it, they're going to be watching it. Right. And they know, and I think that sometimes what happens with R&D is sometimes they don't count the fact that Magic players, they live, sometimes there's a lot of us that will live in that mind frame of, if I win at 1 life, it's still a win. Yeah. And with Phyrexian mana, they did. I don't think they were accounting for that mentality. If I win at 1 life, I still win.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
And I think one thing that a lot of times that we overlook too is that Gitaxian Pro not only hits the obvious decks, which are our Delver decks and our Infect decks, but it also hits the Through the Breach decks and the other combo decks. And I think Wizards is trying to get further away from the combo style of plays.
Right.
And these degenerate, like you said, degenerate style wins.
Right.
Which we'll see where it leads.
Which I don't think there's so much against combo. I think they're just wanting to, like, if you're going to combo, it's going to be the risk reward program.
Right.
And with Gitaxian Pro, it kind of reduced that risk reward of the combo deck. It just kind of became more reward than risk. And so now when you're attacking with your Inkbot Nexus, you're going to have to start threat analysis without that information. Can I attack with 1 Blossom defense, or should I wait till I have 2 Blossom defenses at a time? So now that pushes you back a turn because you might want to wait to build your hand up a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now they push the format into turn 4, into turn 5, and so like I said, it was a great. I think it's a great ban. I think it was. It shows that they're trying to hold true to the turn 4 promise that they had when they started the format.
Right.
The next banning that we'll talk about is Golgari Grave Troll. They said that was they basically just said dredge. Dredge is bad. Dredge is bad for Modern. Dredge is almost pretty much bad for Magic. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the worst of the worst and we're going to take it out. Remove it from modern society.
Yeah.
You go back, it's kind of like if you gave Charles Manson parole and he just got out, just killed, just went on another murder spree, and you're like, what are we doing? Like, why did we give Charles Manson parole? We just left him in jail. And I think that's what happened with Golgari Grave Troll. And I think they named it though too, was with Dredge. Again, with Dredge, just like we're talking about the Phyrexian mana, in that your seasoned players, they don't get spooked by draining their library. There's no fear of milling yourself out if your end plan is to use all those resources to just kill your opponent. And so the thing that I also think that this might mark for the long run is I think that cards that are on the ban list
are going to stay
on the ban list.
Yeah.
I think that they've completely shut down the parole board for the next, at least for the next probably year, maybe even longer. I think that Golgari Grave Troll signals that
We told you it was broken.
Right, the cards that we banned were for a reason, and now it shows too that I think that shows that they know that it's only going to get worse. There's nothing that's going to get better for these cards. So I have fear for cards like Ancestral Visions that came off.
Yeah.
I think that's a card that you could be looking at to get broken again with cards that we'll be talking about in the previews for the future sets. All the expertise cards.
Yeah.
You already see people that are really trying to push Goblin Dark Dwellers to like recast it back from the graveyard. You see people when it first came out really pushing for that.
And then you have that new board wipe where you can just wipe the board and let me see what I get off the top.
Right.
I'm going to cast it for free and here we go.
But before we jump back to that, I think I can speak for some people. I completely disagree with the Golgari Grave Troll banning. I think that obviously that Dredge, I like the format better with Dredge in it, but we could have hit a piece to make it not as impactful. I think they could either hit Cathartic Reunion in Modern or Prized Amalgam, because those were really the two pieces recently that came out that made it more of a degenerate deck.
Right.
So I think that they could have, saved a great style. Because I love seeing different styles of Magic without necessarily killing the entire, Dredge portion.
I also believe that with the Eldritch set that came out, they introduced the Graveyard Recursion. They introduced the Here Comes the Grave stuff. So Wizards at one point were like, what if we promoted it in Modern as well? So Modern players would want to buy the packs to get the Prized Amalgams, to get this. If we unban the Golgari Grave Troll, that makes Dredge possible. That makes all these cards super great. Well, let's see what happens. 3 months later, down the road, you're like, okay, it's too powerful.
Right.
I think it was bad enough when it got banned, and it was just too much with the new cards that hit. Going back to that example, with the new set releases coming out, it only gets worse.
Right. And I think that it also shows, I think that the reason why, one of the things I'm with you too, maybe about the Grave Troll maybe not being the right piece to hit, but I think that the thing is that when they basically came out and they said Dredge is bad. So I think that's really the reason why. I think that they probably could have hit something maybe like a Cathartic Reunion, because also too what that does is that takes a lot of people that invested in Golgari Grave Troll, they're now pretty much out their investment.
Right.
You can already see the price starting to trade down. People are starting to unload them in mass. So something like Cathartic Reunion, you're out $1.50 in uncommons or commons.
Right.
Prized Amalgam, that's fine. It still was and probably might still be heavily played in Standard.
Yeah.
So you still hold some of its price for Standard. But I think I'm with you too, though. I like the idea that it added another archetype to to Modern. But with Dredge, though, you don't have things like you do in Legacy. Like I said, again, you don't have a Thoughtseize. They removed Deathrite Shaman. Deathrite Shaman has always been kind of one of the smaller
premier hate card.
Right, one of the premier hate cards for that deck.
Right.
You just drop the Deathrite Shaman and you can just eat the.
That's not bad Deathrite too.
Then we start hitting a bunch of problems, because then you're going to have to unban something for the Deathrite Shaman, and then you're going to have to unban something for that card.
That's true. I was a big fan of the idea when they were kicking around the internet that they were both going to unban Jace Mind Sculptor and Bloodbraid Elf, because I thought that would have opened up a lot of different things in the format too.
Right. I think what that speaking has to do is back during that Standard time when Jace first came out, Bloodbraid was still illegal in Standard, and they found that the efficiency of Bloodbraid Elf was a checkpoint to Jace.
Yeah.
But also too, but the thing is though is that I think that Bloodbraid falls into that realm of like where you find those realms where you find oh my gosh, I lost it.
The major turning point where you destroy all the lands, float 3 mana, cast the Bloodbraid Elf, get back on board, and now you're screwed.
Like Birthing Pod, like I said with Birthing Pod. Birthing Pod became a design restriction for future sets.
Yeah.
I think that's where Bloodbraid falls in that same category, in which you're now finding yourself instantaneously making a set. And they try to say they don't worry about Modern, but the second that it's released, they have to start wondering about. They have to instantly go to the card file and look at everything that's three mana or less, that's a spell, and then start looking at how bad is this for Bloodbraid. And so when you start doing that, you're going to start maybe start to add a mana to here that's going to add a mana to a card that now makes it unplayable in any format, or they shave a little bit of how good it is to where now it's not playable, not even if it's intended format of either limited or standard constructed. So I think Bloodbraid, I don't think Bloodbraid's coming back. I think that's what I said. Grave Patrol came off the ban list. It became a major issue, and I don't even think Grave Patrol, the dredge deck was overtaken. It wasn't like No Draws in Winter. It wasn't like when they very first started turning over and they had Jun and Punishing Fire, and that whole thing was just starting to become creeping up to that high percentage point where it was closing out people from wanting to play tournaments.
Yeah.
But I believe that they know that it's lending to a deck type that, as time goes on, is only going to get worse. So you might still see a Cathartic Reunion, 2-3 bannings down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, who knows how many sets. So those kind of cards I think are going to be looked at as a possibility.
And I think you actually hit on a piece of it too that I actually didn't consider about Grave Patrol, is the fact that when Wizards is going down the line for new sets, I think that the idea with Grave Patrol in the back of their mind is they have to kind of restrict themselves more on what things interact with the graveyard, because they have to be worried about the impact of dredge in eternal formats. Like you said, they probably weren't thinking too far ahead of Prize Mountain with Dark Reunion and the impact that it would have, and they just said it's probably easier to cut Navari out, and then we don't really have to worry so much about that taking over and being completely dominant. So we'll see how it works, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so now standard bannings.
Now with the standard bannings, we've got, we'll start at the top, we've got Emrakul, the Promised End. Overall, I don't like the idea of any of the standard bannings, because I don't like the idea of being like, oh, some of these decks cause too many field bans.
Yeah.
Well, something's got to be the best card. Something's got to be the best deck. Something's got to be the best strategy at a window of time in standard.
Yeah.
And so
we're setting a poor precedence also for if we complain and cry long enough that they're just going to ban something for us. And I don't think that that's an approach that Wizards should start taking.
Now, at the same time, with something like Emrakul, the Promised End, I think what they did with that card is that you can tell that they themselves put them in a design, they backed themselves into a design corner. Right. Because as you're looking at it before the bannings came out and as the set was coming out, I would look at all these cards and I'd tell myself, okay, how good is this card against Emrakul? Like, if I play this card, can this end the game before Emrakul comes out? Or if Emrakul lands, can this card still ride me through the hell of them taking over my turn and then just wiping my plan out? Can it get me to a point where even if they drop Emrakul, I can still just find some way to just get over that last hurdle and kill them? And so when you're going, even when I was going through the set review of the cards, so many of the cards just didn't hit that hurdle. They just didn't hit that hurdle. They just, you're looking at it and you're going, well, it gives like a little bit better for the vehicles deck, so maybe I'll put that in there. So then you start looking at non-flashy, non-flavorable uncommons and commons to round out decks and make them just a little bit faster against Emrakul decks.
That's Stasis Stand.
Right.
Uncommon can deal with Emrakul. Now you just want it in your deck because that's so factor that it can deal with Emrakul.
Right, and one of the cards that they previewed that's coming out in the new set, I think it's called Disallow. Disallow. So when you get what
you off with Disallow just real quick.
Disallow should be 1 colorless, 2 blue instant. You can counter target spell, triggered ability, or activated ability.
Yeah.
And so, which is essentially Void Slime. They removed the 1 green from Void Slime, gave it to a single blue, so now it's a little bit more movable in different decks. And the thing that, where Disallow still didn't quite cut the mustard to be an Emrakul, because you're picking 1. So you're like, okay, well, they don't get a 13-13 to bash my face in, but they're going to take my turn and they're going to wreck my entire game plan, and then whatever board state they had before this happened could possibly just beat me anyways. Or I don't allow them to take my turn. Now they have their board state plus a 13-13 flyer, trample, protection from instants. So, so you really worry. You're choosing to cut off the left hand or the right hand at that point. And how can you survive with this?
It's just not enough.
Right, it's just not enough.
But how do you think this affects Delirium style decks now, where they were relying on Emrakul to be that finisher? What do they now rely on? Because Ishkana, great card, but it's blockers for days. It's not really a powerful finisher.
Right, it's not putting a lot of points in It's not been a lot of
It turns that degenerate turn from Emrakul into a game of fair magic. You have to trigger your current flares. You have to get your Mind Wreck Demon out. Realistically, can win you the game.
So here's my question: do you think the banning of Emrakul is actually going to increase the price of Liliana? Because I think Liliana is now going to be even more impactful in those style of decks to protect and then ult and then try to finish with the zombie combo. Whereas at least Emrakul gave you a secondary, like you said, degenerate option to do that.
Right. I think that with the Delirium deck, I think you might see them start to result to more cards like Noxious Pool at the top, maybe even like a Verdian.
Noxious Pool, you mean
Noxious Gear Hulk?
Correct, yeah.
Or you see them maybe result to like Verdian Gear Hulk. You may see them go to like Sky Stalker, because with with a Delirium active Grim Flare, or even all the tokens from your Ishkanah, you can crew it, you can start tying it out from there. But what happens to the Delirium deck though, is that it now goes to what I think in the history of all rock decks now I have to get to the finish.
Yeah.
So rock decks have always been really efficient about eking out those little advantages by harmonize, and then you're using really good discount. You're using really good discard. You're using good removal, and you're using some green stuff to help maybe recur things from the graveyard and pitch you some blockers.
Yeah.
And so I think that you're gonna have to go back to, and really what it's gonna do is it's gonna take Delirium, because to the point where right now, right before the rollover of the new standard, really you're down to pretty much. You have to want to not play Black Blue Delirium, or you have to want to not to play Blue-White Spirits.
Right.
Which the couple cards coming up next will be just covering the Blue-White Spirits. So I think that Magic realized that. I think that also too they have a Pro Tour coming up, which is they don't want 3 days of coverage of
Smugglers, Cockers, and Emrakuls.
Right, just Smugglers, Cockers, and Emrakuls, and a couple of the new cards. You might get some Travis Wu Batman that shows up, and he's got this brew that he's just been concocting in his closet. Right, yeah, he's been concocting in his closet for like weeks, and he finally figured it out. And I think that some of that's part of it too. I think that's where you see that quicker manhammer.
Yeah. Do you think that's allowing the players enough time to?
I think that's why they pushed it up a week.
Right. Even with the extra week, do you feel like it's enough time?
I think so. I think that you're still going to see pros that are going to say, look, I've been playing Green Black Delirium for 3 months now, and I think that I can add XYZ new cards from the new set, and I'm still going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think that same thing with your Blue White Spirit deck players. I think that they might be saying, hey, look, Blue White Spirits is still just good. You got Flyers, you've got Disruption, you've got Clock, you still got Gideon, you still got Avacyn, you still got these guys. The two major hitters from the previous thing that didn't get hit was Avacyn and Gideon. Yeah. So the Blue White Spirit deck still uses those. And so you might see these players are like, look, I understand this play style. I'm going to move forward and just do it anyways.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Emrakul does, is that it takes away Black Green Delirium, beating that deck that, just like with Callblade, I don't think it was as restricted as Callblade, but it wasn't its time. It wasn't its time in the sense that you had to like reason with yourself to not play it.
Yeah, it's worth it to pitch.
Right. You have to. Yeah. It's people that are usually. I'm an aggressive player at the core, so I'm playing blue-black zombies. I'm playing red-white vehicles because I'm an aggressive player. Or you're looking at it and you're like, this looks like the time to dust off my green-red energy aggressive deck. Like
yeah, come back
at the SCG Players Championship. He said that look. All these guys are going to be looking to bash mid-range and take control, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to flop energy into my pool and just smash you in the face and just hope that you're not really wanting this.
Yeah, hopefully don't get to turn 4.
And so, but the thing is though, is that when you look at the player, when you look at the numbers of what's making day 2, those guys are so in the minority. You're looking at 1-2 players, and then you're looking at 30 players in the Aetherworks Marvel decks, 40 players in Blue White Spirits, 50 players in Green Black Delirium, and you realize, okay,
it didn't work.
Right, it didn't work. And so you might get one of those guys that has that day, and we've all had it. You have that day where every time you never mulligan, every time you get your 1, 2, 3, 4 curve on it, and you're just smashing. No one's stopping you. No one's sideboarding against you. You're just smashing. You get that guy that hits the top 8, and then he's playing 7 savages that just understand green, black, delirium, and blue, white spirits to the point where even if you're on the hottest run of your life, they're just masters at what they're doing, and they're just going to crush your soul in the top 8.
But to be fair, they don't get the reflector mage every game. They don't get and they still manage to pull off a win.
Right? Yeah, you still see them take them to the 3 games.
Yeah.
But over a 3-game series, though, those guys are, like I said, they're just barbarians on that top 8, and they're just they're almost like reading your hand as if it's open, and but at the same time though,
if they just broke you.
Right. So, but I think that Emrakul is now taking those numbers from those day 2s, and I think by removing Emrakul, you're now looking at there is no more, the door is closed.
Yeah.
Those rock decks, when they start to try to turn that corner, they're now relying on things that are, like I said, like a Noxious Ghoul. It's a 5-4 minutes. If you don't have enough blockers, it can start plugging in. But Emrakul was 13 damage.
Yeah.
That's 1 hit. That's 1 hit. That's maybe 2 hits. Or they can hit you once, activate the spider, drain you for the rest, you're done.
Yeah.
And so now you're looking at, say, now they have deal 5, deal 5, deal 5. So you're looking at 3 attacks, 3 attacks to at least cover what Emrakul's doing.
Yeah.
That's 3 more turns you're giving your opponent to try to either
react,
get into those last points, start stabilizing the board against you. So I think that removing Emrakul opens those things up. Would I rather than just go ahead and emergency print a card that takes care of Emrakul? Something like just like a basic Tormod's Crypt, something that's just a 0 mana. Everybody gets to use it. You're in Kaladesh. I'm sure you can wiggle room that Dovin made it some night when he was high on Escalon. And he just decided to make a Tormod's Crypt. And so you can do that.
The ether went.
Right, and then you can get that, and then now Emrakul, you're paying the real money for it.
Yeah.
You're not getting that. You're not paying 6.
And reward and risk becomes balanced.
Right. Now you're paying full money for it. You know what I mean? Or you're now you're casting it late. Now you have to like rebuild your graveyard to re-get your delirium for them. And so I'd rather see him print a reactive card than ban a card.
Yeah.
And so
that makes perfect sense.
And so that's where we come up with the next ban card, which is going to be Smuggler's Copter. Now, Smuggler's Copters, they said, basically homogenized deck building and deck options.
Do I have something to crew the copter in turn 2?
Right. So basically, when you look at it, that's how it was. Unless you're the Aetherworks Marble deck, and unless you were the Delirium deck, you pretty much just went, all right, 4 copters. What's my other 56 colors?
Yeah. What colors do I want to be in?
Right. What's my next 56?
And even Delirium style decks were sometimes forced to use a Smuggler's Copter just to speed up their draws.
Right. Sometimes they realize, they're like, hey, look, I can, and while I'm waiting to build up my Grimflare, I can use him to crew a copter, start using that copter to fill up my graveyard. Now my Grimflare is active, and then I can drop the spiders. The spiders can now equip the copter.
Yeah.
And so it just turned into this thing where copter became the thing that you just did.
Yeah.
And being colorless, you could just do that thing and everything.
And then to be completely honest, banning the Emrakul, a lot of the Delirium decks would have resorted to dropping the curve, putting 4 copters in, just so they can make their threats more dangerous.
Right. What you started to see at the end, you started to see those green black Delirium aggro decks.
Yeah.
Where they were using Blossom Defenses, Verdant Gearhulks, and they were using Emrakul.
Advocates.
Right.
Yeah.
Advocates, and you saw them coming, trying to go below that. And then you saw those guys starting to incorporate. You start to see them to incorporate the Smuggler's Copter.
Right. Okay. What's your pick for the?
Well, did we talk about Reflector?
We got one more.
That's Reflector Mage.
So on Reflector Mage, that was the most perplexing to me. They said that's the one where you get the worries, because it literally just sounds like
It's just
people
annoying.
were just bitching and moaning about a
Yeah.
card, and we're tired of people bitching and moaning about a card. And so the only thing that I could think of was that while these guys are sitting there up in the Wizard's Castle testing the set for days and days and days, and they got these play groups going, and they're making them play current standards and what possibly new standards and limited formats and this and that, I have to think that maybe there's something with Reflector Mage that just, it was already a card they got tired of getting emails about, and then it became something that there's an interaction with a newer card that came out, or a newer set of cards that came out, that just made it even more annoying. They just want more emails. But at the same time, you know, you're a company that's going to produce a card that's polarizing. Every format is going to be polarizing. Every card is going to be polarizing. And so when people complain about, you know, Reflector Mage is really kind of an annoying card.
Yeah, he didn't win games.
Losing is annoying.
Right.
Losing is annoying. At any point, you lose a creature, it's annoying. You lose a counter ward, it's annoying. You lose a land, it's annoying. You lose a card off the top of your graveyard just from being, just from your Beaumont carrier. You're doing it to yourself. It's annoying.
Yeah.
So
spell fizzles. It's annoying.
Right.
I put some thought into the Reflector Mage issue. I think the problem was it was making Spell Queller better than they anticipated Spell Queller being. A creature that could put on a clock, like a Grim Flare, like a Sylvan Advocate, things that can compete with the style of deck, where you can go Reflector Mage, return it to your hand, now my Spell Queller's better, I can deal with it, whereas you're more forced to hold up the Spell Queller without the idea of knowing exactly what's going to be cast, and so sometimes that will actually throw you off a turn by holding up mana and not casting your Spell Queller. So who knows? Maybe that was the idea. I honestly thought that Spell Queller, if there was going to be one that was hit out of the blue-white flash, was the more degenerate of the two.
I thought so too, because I think that Spell Queller, that might be the new card. That's the test card, and that is this fast enough to get out before Spell Queller gets online? And once Spell Queller online, is this a card that's going to be is this card going to be worth casting past Spell Queller so I can win the game? And that anything in between now is going to be a card that'll just be like, I'm playing vehicles, I just have to put X amount of dwarves in it, I have to put X amount of red-white cards in it.
Yeah.
That's Spell Queller be damned. But in the meantime, though, you might look at to where Spell Queller might start to become that metric. Might start to become that card that
I have to draw
right.
before I cast the spell.
Are you being right? And so you also might start to look at things where like shock is really good. Ooh, shock is really juicy. But then all of a sudden you go, oh, can shock beat Spell Queller?
No.
So I think that the Reflector Mage, there must have been something maybe in the expertise cycle that might be that might be the degenerate. I think Spell Queller is the more degenerate card overall, but Reflector Mage again just perplexing all the way around.
So what do you think blue-white flash is going to basically replace Reflector Mage?
I'm not sure. The new set offers things. There's the one that crews, the 3/4 flyer that crews for one. So that's something that's where you can like Spell Queller, you can like drop in Spell Queller. That way you don't have to worry about putting your Spell Queller into the fray. You can use it to crew that new 3/4 flyer that gains you life.
Yeah.
You can use it for that to like no longer have to put it in harm's way, and I think just attacks throughout the day.
Yeah.
You might see the new Mana Leak. If they're using a lot of them, they use Thraben Inspector. So now your Thraben Inspector, the role of the Reflector Mage might just be filled by that. It's a 3 cast if you don't have it. It's still the same mana slot. So if you don't have the artifact, it's still just a 3 mana. But if you do have the clue, it's now 2 mana. So you might see something like that take that role.
Okay.
To be a tempo player.
I can see that.
So new cards from the set. What's the one that's most likely to see turn of play in the new set?
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
I think that the one that's going to come off right off the bat is going to be the flyer that we're talking about.
The 3/4 flyer.
Yeah. Let's see if we can find it. There we go. You're looking at the Ethersphere Harvester. It's going to be a 3 mana artifact vehicle, flying. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. You could pay 1 energy. It gains lifelink till the end of turn. Crew for 1, 3/5 flyer. So one of the big things is that it can survive attacking into a Absent.
Yeah.
It kills Spell Queller going into it. It's a reasonable clock. It gains you back life. It crews for 1. That's a big thing. And pretty much at that point, outside of a plant token, everything's crew in this guy.
Yeah, your servos and everything, and it's also the answer to the aggressive decks that you're gonna have coming back.
Right.
The energy decks, the humans, all that is just a really good answer. Flies right over, does 3 damage, get 3 over life back, and now puts them on a real clock that they can't beat.
Correct, exactly. And then so, and being at 3 mana, it's low enough that you can even save it for those turns to where you can like cast it and then leave Spell Queller up if you're worried they're gonna have some kind of reactive spell to it. So you can now win that battle at 6 mana, which in standard, if you're playing a tempo deck, that's not unreasonable to get to a 6 mana situation where you drop it and you have a Spell Queller to keep it to keep it alive, and then use that Spell Queller in a defensive way to maybe protect your Gideon.
And now you've gained 6 life,
right,
and puts him in an even worse position.
The card that I think that is under the radar that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, that is also just a humongous tempo swing, and it's very splashable, and I think it's very good, is the Battle at the Bridge. Battle at the Bridge states it's going to be 1 black mana, X, target creature, instant speed, black spell, target creature gets -X, you gain X life.
So like a toxic deluge, but backwards.
Well, yeah, but for a single creature.
Yeah.
And so what you're going to see with that guy is, I don't think it's going to be, like I said, I think it's going to be the breakout card in the sense that you're going to see people run into this thing probably a lot.
Yeah.
Because there's being an X spell, there's no metric of when you can run into it. You can use it to just shrink a creature enough to die in a block situation. You can have so much mana up that you don't know that they can still play a spell with that spell. Sometimes you might be able to just use it just to gain enough life to get back to your next turn so you can win.
Or pump 1 extra to get over the Spell Queller.
Exactly.
So what about you, Enrique? What do you think?
The Convoke card for artifacts. I think you can see all the way from vintage to standard.
The counterspell?
No, search for the
Word of Invention.
Okay.
I think it's called Word of Invention.
So in a meta worker deck, I mean that thing's perfect.
Yes.
It'll fetch you your win con in eggs and lander control. It can also fetch you the win condition.
It can also maybe even fetch you up like survival cards, maybe something like a Filigree Familiar, to where you might need to just buy that turn, and you have the Colossus in your hand. You just need an extra turn, so you might be able to use that, get the Filigree Familiar out, block, gain you 2 life, draw your card, cantrip through it. You can also look into maybe buying you to get that caravan. You know, something where you're like, okay, you're just advancing your board. Tons of things like that. I think that you're right. I think that's going to be big. You might even see it go all the way back to vintage.
Yeah, the metal worker, you were pumping enough mana to go fetch, and they really haven't had ever since Tinker got banned.
Right.
They haven't had anything like that, and this being a new card, it's not going to see the ban list immediately. So it just opens the floodgates for everybody again. Be like, this is not broken. This card can be in vintage.
And I believe is it instant speed or is it sorcery? I believe it's instant speed.
Yeah, it's a quarter colony.
Yeah, it's
not quite as good as those because you can't pay for the blue, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, but it's still instant speed.
But still instant speed. Like, again, to where you can hold that up, and at the end of their turn, bring in your last little prophetic prism.
Yeah.
So that you have the 2, and then you can just cast now you bring in the 2, you draw a card into the turn, boom, now I have enough mana, now we're going to start chaining together our Metalwork Colossus. You're going to look at bam, chain. So you can look at things like that.
Mono Blue Tron, perfect too.
Yeah.
You lost Ivugan.
Right.
And now you have 7 mana to do whatever you want with it.
Right, it gives you something to do, like when you draw that turn, that really is, for the most part, unnecessary map.
Yeah.
You know, that map now can turn into basically a mana rock for digging out your kill spell. Something like that also too, like you said, your mono blue Tron decks, a lot of times they're running really thin on what their threats are.
And
what
their
end conditions, right, what their end game is. And so that we're in Invention, you might see something to where they can use it for both tutoring up answers and for tutoring up their win condition.
Yeah, you tutor up an Oblivion Stone just to get you out of that situation, buys you 4 or 5 turns long term, and that's where that game wants to be for Mono Blue
I
Trump.
believe it would be a 4 no, but you can see it to where they may start shaping those numbers to where you're now three thirst of knowledge and then 1 word of invention.
Yeah.
Just to have that card that you can, when you top deck it, it's got an implication.
I see it also coming out as the Trinket Mage or the Treasure Mage.
Right.
That's a perfect slot to slot
Right,
into
yeah.
too.
1 or 2 of you see them shading some number somewhere for it. What's your?
I'm gonna say it's giving Jund players a better option, I think, than Bolt in the first few turns.
I think you're right. I think that 5 years from now, if we're still talking and doing this, I think that Fatal Push is going to be that card that there's just never enough printings of.
Yeah.
They can make it an F&M promo. They can make it a Johnny versus Jace 12
Intro pack.
Yeah, an intro pack. It could be in anthologies. It could be a Commander. It could be Modern Masters 2020. There's just never going to be enough printings of it. Just like Path, Bolt, Kitchen Finks, Spell Pierce, Spell Snare.
Yeah.
You're gonna see it be one of those cards that Sarah Visions that you just never see. There's just never enough printings of it because
It's never going to drop below $2.
it's going to become that card like those cards in that when you decide to put black in your deck, you're pretty much going, okay, I've got 4 Fatal Pushes. What's the rest of my deck?
Right.
Yeah.
So, do you think that this is going to push Jund away from Lightning Bolt? Or are they going to take that slot? How do you feel it's going to work?
I think that with Jund, I think they might do fine. You might see them sprinkling 1 or 2 of them. You might see it take the place of the Terminate slot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the Terminate slot was kind of like that
Unconditional.
kill, right?
Yeah.
That kill that card. So you might see it take a spot of that. I think you're going to see it become really big in things like Grixis. Grixis, for the most part, other than Terminate, they didn't have a path. They didn't have an abrupt decay.
Yeah.
They didn't have that card that just said, kill that thing.
Right.
And you have Terminate, but that's 2 different colors.
Yeah.
It's a 2-mana slot.
All those answers have always
Right.
been double black, red black,
Right,
never just a
exactly.
1 drop.
All right. So, what do we think is going to be the breakout deck in the new format? What do you think it's going to be?
The new standard format?
Yeah, the new standard format.
I believe that there's some kind of a combo deck, and I know everyone's talking about the Saheeli Twin, and I think that Saheeli Twin there's going to be a pro at the Pro Tour that's going to be saying that I can use controlling spells and this combo once I'm done to win the game, and I think you might see that.
It's replacements of the Splinter Twin combo.
Right.
What's good enough to be my Lightning Bolt in standard? What's good enough to be my copy spell, my combo kill?
What I think that actually you might see is, what I think might happen is, I think you're going to see something that's going to be a vehicle-based deck. I think that even with Copter being gone, they've made, there's now enough, even with Copter being gone, there's now enough vehicles. I think that those new spells that like permanently turn on vehicles, you might see something like that just really break out.
Start your engines becomes a little
Start your
more
engines.
yeah.
I think that there's the one that, the 3-cast one from Red, that gives it like first strike and +2/+0 and just permanently turns it into it. There's a white one. It's a little more expensive, but it gets +2/+2 and flying.
Yeah, and then they have that vehicle that makes vehicles get crewed or turns
Right.
into
There's the one that crews other vehicles. So I think that I wouldn't be surprised to me if you see that there's a vehicle deck that comes out that's real. That's what I think.
My pick has to be the blue artifact.
Okay.
There's just too much good artifacts with the metalwork running around and all the support the new set's giving them to fetch out, to draw with the useless artifacts that are there already.
I just realized.
Right, yeah,
You can do, because it's an instant speed, you can do a Torrential Gear Hulk into that rear of inventions. So like you can just use like Torrential Gear Hulk, not have to pay that blue part, and then just really pump into the mana again.
Yeah, so you get a 5/6 body out of it.
Right. In fact, I think you can probably just chain it to where you can actually whir invention if you have enough artifacts out. You can Torrential Gear Hulk into the whir.
Now, are we talking about the Lost Night Seduction, or what artifact are we talking, or enchantment, or?
The one that he was talking about.
The Quarter Column.
The Quarter Column one. The whir.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's great.
He's saying there's going to be maybe some kind of a tutor deck or like maybe like a Torrential Gear Hulk, like chain deck.
You still got to remember that we still have to pay the 3 blues no matter
Not
what
if
it
you
is.
Torrential Gear Hulk.
Not even Torrential Gear Hulk. That's what we're saying. Like you might use it in the early turns to get yourself some mana rocks or a vehicle, an efficient.
And then a lot of the times you're playing these puzzle knots that are not doing anything.
Right.
But just sitting there adding to the count. Now, if you're able to turn it on with tap the artifact, draw a card, it makes those artifacts so much better, and you get a filter through your deck so much faster, allowing you to cast the Colossuses on turn 3,
Right.
or fetching them out on turn 4 to be able to cast them already.
Exactly. And in a set that's based around artifacts, and you give yourself a quarter calling for artifacts, I think that you're right. I think that that's a card that's...
And there's not enough artifact hate in the set.
Right.
There's not enough good artifact hate in the set to outlast that. You do that turn 3, turn 4,
Right.
turn 5.
At least especially in the main deck. You have that white one that's kind of like the...
Fragmentized?
the new one that's the mass oblivion ring for artifacts and vehicles. It's a white one. It's like 3 colorless, 2 white. Whenever it comes into play, remove all of your opponent's artifacts and vehicles from the game until this card leaves play. It's going to probably be a big sideboard card.
All right. Well, I think my choice is going to be a little bit different. I'm going Jeskai full combos. So I think Mechanized Production slammed in with the Saheeli combo with the Wandering Funeral and what is the name of that creature?
It's the artifact creature that gives +1 whenever a creature activates its abilities.
Right.
Oh, okay, with the Wandering... Okay. Where is it
It's
at?
a forecast 4/4. Where is it at?
He's right there. Crackdown Construct.
Crackdown Construct. I think I'm going to...
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So... Go full combos, throw every single combo into the deck, start out with Thraben Inspector, see if we can enchant some clue tokens, make 1 million clue tokens, win the game that way. Obviously, Saheeli Twin combo. And if that doesn't work, we can just crack down Construct, figure out a way to get a trample, and just go over the top that way.
So you're saying you're just going to put the peanut butter with the jelly, with the sprinkles, with the ice cream, with the cherries, with some extra nuts. We're going to toss on some M&Ms, some relish, some pickles. Everything's going on this Sunday.
Vanilla shake. Exactly. Go full on absurd.
Okay.
Go straight Jeskai.
So just from whatever set turn, like turn 3, turn 4, you're just going to say, look, I got some kind of combo coming out from my sleeves. And
exactly.
If you're not doing anything about it, it's just going to be coming.
Exactly. And they don't actually work that bad, together. Right? They work pretty well together because Saheeli actually makes artifacts and things like that. So, and you can search out artifacts, but you can search out pieces of the combo for Wandering Funeral if you don't necessarily have the cat. So, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to test it out.
Any honorable mentions, Cary?
There we go. The Consulate Crackdown. That's what I was talking to you guys about. The Consulate Crackdown enters the battlefield. 3 colorless, 2 white enchantment. Enters the battlefield. Exile all artifacts your opponent controls until Consulate Crackdown leaves the battlefield.
Unnecessary.
Well, that's where they
balance it.
Well, they printed a card knowing that, hey, artifacts might be an issue. Here's a card that's going to take care of that. But that's where they where's your Piety Needle for the vehicles? Where's your Tormod's Crypt for Emrakul and Delirium decks? But yeah, I think they're all great choices. I think that your choice might actually piggyback on his choice that we mentioned. Yeah, right. Something to help expedite all those combos that you're talking about.
Yeah.
In combo Christmas land.
No, am I missing something? Or I thought there was an improvised counterspell. Double blue.
There is. That's the one that is the. I think it's called like Rebuke something. Rebuke the Metallic.
And I think
Metallic Rebuke. So you have the Metallic Rebuke, and that's the one I was saying that might take the place of the Reflector Mage. So now you get to go Thraben Inspector, get your clue. Now your clue can turn on the Metallic Rebuff. If you don't have your Thraben Inspector, it's still just something that you can just tempo out to their turn 4 or their turn 3, and then you can into Spell Queller.
And Mana Leak is never terrible.
Yes. I also think that there's probably going to be one Conley Woods, one way out there guy that might even be able to figure out some way to make the Aetherborn deck playable. The Lord is just, the Lord reeks of being something good.
Yeah.
It says, one of the things that travel decks hate, and they always die horrible deaths to, is board wipes. And that's because you now spent your whole hand. What that does now is it allows you at bad life, which is fine. Like we said, if I'm at 1 life, you lose, I still win.
Yeah.
So, they wrath your board, you're refilling your hand. And so whether you're clearing off lands, or you're clearing off, or you're rebuilding with creatures, it's now a risk. It's a risk. It's not it's not quite the.
I'm in the safe zone now.
Right, yeah, you're not pulling your ass completely out of the fire. You still got one cheek touching it.
Yeah.
With them drawing that many cards.
Yeah.
So I think that with him being a lord, with that being the lord for that top end, you might see something with like Scrap Heap Scroungers, maybe some cheaper cards like that. Fleet Wheel Cruisers coming in. Relentless Dead.
Prime Amalgams.
Right. You might see things like that aren't Etherborns, but they're at least enough Etherborns to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think it's time we can wrap it up.
Yes.
Guys, if you like what we said, if you don't like what we said, like, comment below, agree, disagree, subscribe. We want to hear your feedback. If you have different combos, different cards you think that are going to explode, let us know. And if there's anything that you want to hear us talk about, comment down below and we'll try to get to that as fast as we can.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, guys.